I want to call the meeting of the Extracurricular Committee to order. And could I please have an approval of the April 15th meeting minutes?
So moved.
And a second.
I would second that.
And any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we passed the meeting minutes for last month. Any old business committee members?
None to
that I can
report at
think
this
of.
time.
All righty, well, moving right along, let's go on to new business and our conversations with our guests. And tonight we have Monica Griffith, our high school yearbook advisor, and she's going to go solo. She gave Dan the night off.
He did offer to come, and I said, I think I'm okay. So,
Oh, I miss him. So Monica, first of all, thank you for giving up your time this evening to be with us and share with us all about high school yearbook and how do you do high school yearbook in a pandemic? And for my benefit, before you get into things, could you share with at least me, because I would like to know more about you and the years you've been in the district and everything else that you do.
I taught for 10 years at Wilson area in Easton, and started with Upper Perk in 2015. So this is the end of my 16th year with the district, 26th year overall. And this is my 14th year with yearbook. The first book we did was the 07-08 book. I think if I ask the Jostens rep, the average tenure for a yearbook advisor is something like 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
The burnout's pretty high on it. So I guess I'm like a dinosaur down at 14 books. But teaching accounting all day, which is one side of your brain, it's nice to kind of use the other side. So it's a little balance. This has not been a fun year. Not going to sugarcoat it. This has been a really challenging year. Trying to make progress in fall without anyone being in the building was super tricky. And then because, normally we would take underclass pictures and staff pictures in September, we would get our images in October. We didn't get our images until the end of March this year because we had to do both groups and retake. So and without having a lot of the coverage that we were used to in the fall, we didn't want to put out a substandard product. We really, the poor seniors this year, my oldest is a senior, so I feel for my kids at home under my roof and my kids at school in my classroom. This is not the senior year they've been looking for, and we didn't want to give them a bummer of a yearbook to look back on either. So we did decide we would change what we've done my previous 13 years. Due to deadlines, we've had to usually cut the book off somewhere around March 31st, April 1st, and send it to publication to have it out for, normally we would have distribution next week and we would have a big event. But we always then did a spring supplement, which was a tip-in. It was like a 16-page extra you could buy for about $10, and they would mail it home, and that would have all of our spring events in: Powder Puff football, Mr. Upper Perk, prom, graduation, baccalaureate, the spring sports scoreboards, because we barely get the team pictures done and we never get to put in their final scores. So we would have all those things that happen in April, May, and June as a supplement. So this year we decided we're just going to make it part of the book. They didn't get a homecoming dance, but we can do 2 pages of prom and really try and get those kids in. The other big challenge was trying to get the virtual students in so they feel like they're part of the student body. The big challenge in the past was always trying to get the VOTEC students in so they felt like they're part of the student body. And sorry, we have a landline phone yet, and whenever someone calls in, it makes my connection unstable. Sorry. To make our virtual students feel like they are part of the school. and really trying to get those students in. And unfortunately, not all of our clubs are able to be active and do, so really it's been just trying to get as much coverage as possible. So we are going to include baccalaureate. We're going to include graduation as part of the book. So therefore the book probably won't be out until the end of July, and we'll notify everyone who bought a book, and we'll have distribution times at the high school where they can come drive through and pick them up, but just felt like the best thing to do for the seniors.
That's great. I can't imagine what it's like trying to put a yearbook together in a pandemic or any other unusual situation. First of all, thank you for your longevity, for being the advisor for so many years, and we certainly appreciate your time. I know it's not an easy job. In a normal year, Monica, what does a normal timeline look like for your book when things are normal?
Do you mean as far as distributing the book, or we usually have 4 deadlines. So our book is 160 pages. I usually have an editor-in-chief for each of the deadlines, so that they only have to, I have 4 editors-in-chief, so they only have to focus on 40 pages instead of 160 pages. So our first deadline is typically Christmas. Second deadline is usually somewhere around Martin Luther King Day. Third deadline is usually somewhere around President's Day. And our fourth and final deadline is usually around the end of March, so that they can have it to us by the end of May. So this year we would normally cut off the end of March. Now that we're cutting off later in June. So that's why the book is a little later. Another big challenge has been trying to keep the staff members who are at home involved. If they're in the classroom, I can give them a camera and give them an assignment. Okay, we need pictures of this, and they can go and do it. When they're at home, their level of participation it's really hard to keep them active and keep the responsibilities balanced. And so that's been a big challenge too. Students are at home, to give them something meaningful to do, to feel like they're engaged in the book publication.
Sure. And again, during normal times, do you encounter any difficulty with getting staff, students to act as your editor-in-chief and things like that? Is there ever an issue where you're trying to find kids to, really put everything together?
No, in fact, usually we have the opposite problem. I usually have about 40 to 50 students who elect yearbook, but we only do 1 section a semester. So usually you try and cap it around 25. So when the schedule runs, there's always conflicts, and someone who wanted the class doesn't get it because it doesn't fit in their schedule. So usually there's elimination there due to the schedule conflicts. But no, typically it's a whole lot easier when we're all in school. So hopefully this is an anomaly year. And if someone wants to give me screen sharing capabilities, I can show you the cover.
Sure. Yeah. And Monica, during this difficult time of working in a pandemic, are you able to reach out to other yearbook advisors in other school districts to, kind of collaborate on how everybody's doing everything? Do you have a network?
That's where our publishing company, Jostens, is amazing. They have a lot of ideas and resources they've shared. Our representative, Bill Straub, has given me a lot of ideas and help. Some of the other schools were back in at least hybrid starting earlier in the year, so they didn't have, the exact same challenges we had. But the Jostens has been great.
That's awesome. Jostens has been around forever. I mean, it's amazing.
And what's also been hard, and we didn't expect it, is getting students who are at home to reply to our emails. We'll try and ask them for a quote to do a feature, especially So the freshmen, we had a pretty good response to come in and have their pictures taken. I want to say we had somewhere in the like 220 range. So you had about 10% that didn't come in for their picture. But when it came to the sophomores and juniors, we probably had between 50 and 70 that just did not come in for their pictures. If they were, the very few of the online students chose to come in, and we had 2 days that we made available for them to come in, and we even had it extend, I think, until 6 o'clock so that a parent could bring them in if they didn't drive. So unfortunately, we're going to have a list of students not photographed. And for the underclassmen, that's pretty unusual because on a school picture day, they're all in school or they're in for retake. So we tried to reach out to many of them and get them to give us a quote and do a feature. Some responded, some multiple emails just weren't returned. So, you know, we tried to find others. So.
Yeah. Alan, can you share this? Can you want to show us the cover, Monica?
You should be able to do it.
Okay. And Dana or Mike, do you have any questions?
I wasn't aware that it was an actual class. So in order to participate in yearbook, you have to get into the class.
So it is considered a co-curricular, just like UPN and the newspaper used to be, because there is, you know, there's instruction and, but we do have ways for students to contribute and be involved. There's a thing called Replay It, which is an app you can download on Android or Apple, and you search for our school by city, state, or zip code, and you can link to us, and you can upload pictures from your phone right into my staff's image gallery. And we can use images that people submit. You know, let's say the girls field hockey team all goes out for breakfast one Saturday morning and they take some fun pictures. Well, my yearbook staff isn't there to capture that because it was a spontaneous thing the team decided to do. They submit the pictures to us and we can include it on the page. You know, students take some fun pictures at the prom and, you know, they submit them to Replay It, and we can include that and do a photo credit. But I have had students who just, you know, they go to VOTEC and they're at VOTEC when the class is running, but they contribute pictures or some other way. So when we sat down, let's see, I think if I do this. So when we sat down to talk about our theme, they decided that we wanted to do something unique to the year because it's a unique year. So we had a lot of fun ideas. From a Distance was one that came up. A Year Like No Other is one that came up. They had a lot of cute ones. I wish right now I could remember every single one, but what the team decided on was From a Distance. And they tried to incorporate, you know, it might be subtle, but when we looked around the school, a lot of things that we saw were arrows, like directional arrows in the hall one way. So we wanted to include the spear in it because it's, you know, it reminds us of Upper Perk arrows. And then we also have the circles, which, you know, we were talking about, okay, so what's changed? And, you know, we said, well, when you're in the, you know, the grocery store or you're in a store, you have to like stand on the circles and you're not, the circles are 6 feet apart. And so we tried to incorporate, you know, themes of like circles. Oh, I think one of the theme ideas was Behind the Mask. So they had a lot of really great ideas, but they thought the one that gave the most opportunity to carry it through cover to cover was From a Distance. We talked about one of the design elements that we've talked about before but haven't used was a gradient. So they decided that's how they would do something different and incorporate school colors to be a blue and gold gradient. So that's the cover.
That's great. And I'm so glad that you continue to use the name Wallam Alum, because that goes way, way back to the consolidation of the school district. So that's awesome that that continues.
They have a
Anyone-
Wallem Alum the first year of Upper Perk. I saw it's volume 69.
Right, so that was the year that, they merged. And when we did some research into it, Wallam is, if you like Google it, it's the first recorded record of the Indian tribe that was common to this region. So it really fits because this is our record of the year, and that was what they called their record, the Wallam.
That was the Lenape Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Dr. Roach.
I have a question. Monica, is the title there From a Distance, is that a secret or is that okay to be shared publicly?
I guess it's okay to be shared. We've been, talking about how to carry that theme through. So we try not to give everything away, but we also often will put some pictures out because let's be real, the book is, depending on when you buy it, because they have a sale time, it's $70 and it goes up to $75. How many of us would buy something off of Amazon for $70 sight unseen? Not too many of us would hand over $70 without knowing what we're going to get. So we always try and look at it as a business. And, people put a whole lot of trust in us to hand over $70 without knowing what they're getting. So we do try and give little hints out throughout the time because we're aware of the fact that they are giving us money and putting a whole lot of trust in us. And, sometimes we'll have a neat spread and we'll post it out in the hall outside the room so that people kind of stop and look at it and it kind of, picks their interest. Usually at the end of the year, we would, if we see, this student is in the book 4 or 5 times and they haven't bought the book, we'll send a little slip to their homeroom, like, hey, Peg, you're in the book on pages 3, 84, 57, and 101. And then they want to know, well, wow, I'm in the book all those times. So we do try and let people know you're in the book. So
That's great.
Good marketing strategy. I like it.
Great. And is the yearbook available for purchase by the general public, or is it just?
it is. I think they have the sales open through May 31st. And then we try and assess at that point, okay, how many copies are we going to need to go to print? Because they might extend that a couple more weeks since it, if we take pictures at graduation on June 10th, it'll take a couple days to get them back and sorted, and we have to tag all the images, place them, run the index. So it'll probably go into publication maybe like the 3rd week in June. So, they may not have to have the final quantities until maybe mid-June instead of the end of May.
And do the seniors still have the option of getting their name on the yearbook?
Yep, and it's actually open to all purchases. They can choose, and now they have icons, if you want to get your instrument on for marching band or pom-poms for cheering or graduation year. They have some neat icons and monograms.
Yeah, Mr. Hipser and I were talking a few weeks ago about how the yearbook has changed since we were in high school.
And I think
Thank goodness.
And I think the challenge now is how do we coexist alongside of social media? Because, book sales in general, whether it's yearbook or fiction, nonfiction, they're not what they were a generation ago. And sometimes students think, well, I'm always going to have Instagram. I don't need this picture. But I know if there were not captions on, and then I try and tell my students too, you might not think you need to caption this photo, but there will come a time when you're not going to remember every name and every face and all the details. So it is important. It is a historical record. So
For us, it's getting our yearbook signed at the end of the year was such a big deal. And is it still a thing for kids today, or is that not that important?
it is. They do try and get their book signed at the end of the year. Now, last year, the books were mailed home, and Rob and I had discussed, could we have a signing party for the seniors before they went off to college? Unfortunately, the conditions just didn't allow it. So, I think we'll suggest that if the class officers want to say, okay, on this day in August, let's meet at this park and we'll all sign our books.
Yeah. Or wait till your 5-year reunion.
Right.
Does anybody else from the group have any questions or comments for Monica?
I have a question. Hey, Monica, first, thank you for coming on and joining us tonight. And, appreciate all the work and time and effort you put into making a successful yearbook. It's appreciated. So thanks. Especially because one of those yearbooks I think will be in my house this year. My question is this: suppose that, for example, somebody, doesn't have enough, money to buy a yearbook, because they are, pricier than they used to be. Is there anything to do to get them a yearbook if it's, hey, it's like one kid, he's got 3 siblings, he's got a single mom raising them. Do we have anything like that?
Sometimes if there are like really extenuating circumstances, I can maybe try and talk to Justin's to get, a comp 1 or 2. Believe it or not, there is an option to donate a yearbook, and every year we seem to have maybe one parent who's willing to donate one, and then we can try and find out through guidance who might be, most in need of one. Unfortunately, we just try and break even every year. Our thought has always been, if we're making hundreds of dollars of profit, I wouldn't even really know what we would spend it on. But if we did make a profit, it's on the backs of parents, and that doesn't feel right. We just want to break even. So, sometimes if there's a couple bucks left over after we pay our invoice, we will maybe try and look at, new camera cards or, a lens to help the staff make a better yearbook the following year. But, I can always try and talk to the publisher and see if there's like an extra copy they can, help us out with, or comp us one.
Well, does anybody even ask that question?
Very few people will ask. Sometimes we'll find out about a situation, maybe from guidance, this parent, lost their job, or, they're in jeopardy of being evicted, something. We'll find out, is there anything we can do to help the senior? And then I can always go to our rep for Justin's and see if there's anything they can do for us. But we usually try and, so the reason that sales will close before it goes to print is so we have an idea of how many we need to print. If our sales are 350, we want to have some extras, but not so many that we can't pay our invoice when it comes due. So, but one of the things I've thought about doing is maybe trying to do a yearbook fundraiser. I know the high school my children go to, they do a fundraiser, and now I think it's for them to buy equipment and stuff, but maybe if we did a fundraiser and it was successful, we would have enough that we could, we have a book for someone who really doesn't have the means for it.
Can I just interject? My husband's listening in the den, and he said he'd be happy to donate 3. So
I was going to say the same thing. I'd like to do it.
All right, Tim.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's great. Well, and I can, guidance knows a little bit more about the family situations of all students, where I might only know a little bit about the ones in my classroom, which is limited. But also they see, especially for the seniors, because a lot of students apply for scholarships, they see what their college expected family contribution is, and then they have an idea of need more than I do. So I can always let guidance know.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, he asked who we should make the check out to, and he'll do that.
Just UPHS, and then I can deposit it with Michelle.
That's great. Anyone else?
He also said he'll find somebody he knows on school board to give it to.
Monica, I just wanted to say thanks for the presentation and for all your work with the students. And it's nice to finally be able to put a face with the name. And your Bitmoji looks just like you. Like when your screen came on, I was like, oh my gosh, she did a good job. So just thank you. And also I would like to donate a yearbook next year. So I'll just put that on my calendar.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Monica, do you have any questions for us or anything?
One of the things I know is coming up, and just because I see Sandy is on here, I believe our contract with Christmas City is coming up, correct?
That's correct. I think Dan was extending that though, if I remember correctly.
Okay. One of the students asked me about senior pictures, and I know one of the issues we ran into when we made the switch from Life Touch to Christmas City is we had the first round done by Life Touch, and then retakes were done by Christmas City. That did not go really well. So I've been putting off senior pictures for right now because I knew that contract was kind of coming close to the end, and I didn't want to have another situation where one studio did the initial round and another one did the retakes. Do you know when it's going to be extended to? Because normally I would try and do those pictures in summer.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it would be on the June, his intention was on the June agenda to extend that. I thought it was going to be May, but I think obviously now it's closed, so we'd have to do it in June.
But do you know when you're proposing their contract be extended through?
Drew? No, I do not.
Okay.
I do not. I'll check though, and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, because we would typically do the senior, we would have like a week where they could come in and get their pictures done. Typically, we would try and do that maybe in July, and then we'll do retakes in September. So if the contract was going to end August 31st, I would end up in that same situation. So
Didn't we do a 3-year contract the last time?
yes, and I believe it ends this summer.
Right, it does. So, okay, yeah, I would think it would extend it another 3 years, but I'll let you know.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that had to go out for bid since them getting the contract had to go out for bid.
It doesn't have to be bid because it's a service. We have bid it the last 2 times, but I know he's been in contact with them. I've let him handle the pictures since he's been here. So I'll talk to him and get back to you.
Okay, sounds good.
Anything else? All right, Monica, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing all that information. And secondly, and mostly, thank you again for your longevity and your service.
And
so
thank you guys for all you do in supporting Yearbook, especially I know those seniors in need will really appreciate it. Thanks.
you bet. And just moving forward, we resurrected the Extra-Curricular Committee, and we're here to assist you any way we can. So we hope next year we'll be able to invite you back, and you can bring Dan along if you want. And so we look forward to chatting with you again, and don't ever hesitate to reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help.
Thanks. Yeah, Dan is really a big help. I just decided he could take the night off this time.
That's nice. Well, thank you, Monica, and have a good night.
Thank you, Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
All right, and next we'll ask Mr. Kurzweg and Mrs. Fisher to take the stand and give us a little update on the OCR investigation.
Okay, so
I'm all ears.
I know you are, Peg. So Bobby and I have been working to develop a slideshow that we're hoping you find to be useful. It's a lot of information, but what we thought might be most useful is if we were able to give a broad overview of basically what the initial complaint was, what the steps are that we needed to take, basically an overview of the resolution agreement that the district did sign with OCR in 2008 in order to resolve the issues. So we're going to kind of go through it slide by slide. I think we have a total of 7 or 8 slides. We'll gladly take questions, so feel free to jump in anytime. I'm going to share my screen and Bobby's probably going to start. The one thing I did want to mention is Justin Barbetta has been helping us to resolve these issues. He's been great. He's been meeting routinely with Bobby and I, and really helps us to stay organized, and he's been wonderful. We've also had 3 investigators assigned since the initial complaint came, which has proven to be a bit of a challenge. So we're on the 3rd investigator, and Justin's done great with managing to stay in close contact with her as well. So we are going to give you an overview and then kind of talk to you about the status of where we're at, what we've completed to date, and what's still outstanding that we're working on, okay? Okay, I gotta share my screen. I have share abilities, right, Alan? Yeah. Okie dokes. Can you guys see that?
All right, good evening. First step of the resolution agreement that was put on our plate from the OCR was to create a policy on how the school district would look to at request to start new athletic programs. This policy was created and approved by the OCR back in 2018. Part of that agreement was that the policy needed to be posted on the school district's website. And as you can see there, the link is under the athletic website and the file is under files. The second part of the agreement is to continue to make sure that we're providing equal opportunities for our female athletes. We needed to look at what sports we do not offer and gauge interest in those sports. We also needed to look at participation rate in our female sports that up until this year, due to the pandemic, had been significantly increasing. This area also discusses if we were cutting females from sports teams, that we were documenting those reasons and encouraging them to try out for another sport. We generally do not have many cuts in our athletic programs, but if we do, those cuts will be documented, and all athletes at all times are always encouraged to try out for another sport. Where we are with the status of part 2, in 2019, we hired an outside company to do sports interest survey to hear from our athletes what interests they had. From the results of the survey, we created a varsity girls indoor track program that just completed its first season. In addition, we created a girls volleyball club that planned to run again this year, but was unable to due to the pandemic. Last month, we did a follow-up survey to try and narrow down the interests of our female students in grades 6 through 11. We currently are waiting to hear back from OCR, but the survey showed that we had interest in girls volleyball, girls golf, and girls bowling. Part 3 of the agreement is closely connected with part 2. This area is discussed that the school district plans, what the school district's plans were to increase athletic opportunities for our female athletes, female students. As I said earlier, we already created a varsity girls indoor track program that had 19 girls participate this winter. We also are planning to start our girls volleyball club group back up again next school year.
Sorry. The next area that we need to address or assess and evaluate is the scheduling of our games and practices for our athletes. This was an area of concern that was brought up, and we needed to assess basically the competitive and practice schedules to ensure that both male and female students were provided with the same benefits in that area. If not found to be equal, we needed to develop a plan that was approved by OCR to ensure that those student athletes were getting the same benefits and equal treatment. What we did do is we submitted our information to OCR in the fall of 2008. Since that time, since working with Justin, actually, OCR has requested additional information, and we've been working to provide that to OCR as well. Additionally, as recently as, I think it was April I might have the date wrong, 29th, I believe it was. Bobby and I it was earlier in April. Bobby and I put together a memo as well as a training for our coaches, all of our coaches, informing them of what the expectations are for not only keeping their practice schedules, but how to cancel practices should they need to, where that would be reported. They're expected to use Remind, which is a software, in order to do that. And that allows Bobby to be able to keep an eye on things and make sure that we're being fair and consistent across the board. We did also require them to submit a signed acknowledgement to us, acknowledging that they received that information, and that will go in each of their personnel files as well. Area 5 was the availability, assignment, and compensation of coaches. We were expected to ensure that we are providing equivalent opportunities in the areas of coaches and how they're assigned to our student athletes programs. We did initially in 2018, the district did provide all of that data, quite a lengthy spreadsheet to OCR. And then as recently as just within the last month, we did update all of that information again, resubmitted to OCR because we had new coaches. So in the last several years, we've hired new coaches, and we also provided them that information. Justin submitted it recently. The next area was an assessment of our locker rooms, our practice and competitive facilities. That was done initially in 2018, and then we were expected to provide a copy of our findings to OCR and then make changes, obviously based on those on OCR's recommendations. One area that was cause for concern, which shouldn't be a surprise to any of us, was the softball field. There have been recommendations made for changes to our softball field and upgrades. So far, the dugouts have been done, and as you all know, recently we just approved. Thank you, Bobby. Did you do that? No, just approved the assessment to be done so that we can continue to do other things such as the drainage project, the scoreboard. I'm trying to think, batting cages is on there, batting tunnel. There's several things listed, as you all know. So the last area that we were asked to assess was overall publicity for each of our teams, to ensure that once again we were providing publications and promotional materials equally and fairly for both female and male student athletes. That information was once again submitted to OCR in 2018, and we continue to improve in that area, specifically through the use of social media, and Bobby can speak to that more specifically.
Yeah, correct. So last year I purchased a program called Gipper that is used as part of our athletic program now, that we use to report scores on Twitter, to acknowledge senior nights, acknowledge any type of good positive things that we going on. It's a very nice template that you can add pictures to. It's colorful. It's something that we started here last year, and a bunch of our league members saw what we were doing, and a bunch of them jumped on as well. So it's really provided really good publicity for all of our student athletes and some of our coaches who are doing good things. So we'll definitely continue using that program, and it's going over very well for us.
Yeah, items 4 through 7, all of those items make up our equity self-assessment. So while we've completed several of those tasks and continue to update that information for OCR, all of those things together make up our equity self-assessment. So once all of that is completed, we're hoping to have all of those items completed by the end of June, is our goal, to work with Justin to get all of that completed by the end of June, and to be able to submit it as one neat package to OCR, and hopefully resolve this, and then obviously continue to put systems in place to prevent a reoccurrence and ensure equity.
So like Georgie said, what are our next steps? We are continually working to update the information that we had previously submitted to OCR, and we'll provide that updated information to them by the end of June. With the guidance from the OCR, we'll continue to look at the possibility of adding additional sports for our female athletes. We are also hoping to plan to have upgrades done to our varsity softball field, which was one of the main reasons of the contention back in 2018 when this process started. As you know, we went to the facilities committee. Some of those improvements are upgrades of drainage, which is one of the main problems over there. a new scoreboard that we're going to be relocating that'll make it more visible for the spectators and for the student athletes, a batting cage, a sound system, and new bleachers.
That concludes what we have to present. What questions can we answer?
Can you make that PowerPoint available to us?
Sure
Okay.
can.
And what company did you use for the interest survey?
The one we just did, we did a Google form.
Okay.
The one that we did a couple years ago was Larry, the
You
gentleman.
did life tracks?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the softball field upgrades, did that come directly from OCR?
No, that was,
So- Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We've not actually heard from OCR about the facilities. That was stuff that when we did our investigation and looked at, those are the items that we felt we were not at the level we needed to be. So those are the recommendations that with Mr. Kenwood and administration that we're looking to do as upgrades.
Do you know if they're going to send an investigator to do a site visit?
We've not, sorry, go ahead, Georgie.
No, it's okay. I was just going to add to answer that question, Peg. We have what we were told. Justin is coming out on June 1st. He's actually going to walk through the sites, take pictures, and the OCR investigator has asked him to send those pictures to her for review. So after that has taken place, then they'll determine whether or not they want to come on site and do a site investigation.
Okay.
Have they ever actually been here then?
No.
Really?
No.
They don't
They
always,
also-
they don't always do a site visit. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the case and how they view it.
I just wanted to mention that the most recent survey, Bobby put that together and those questions were approved in advance by OCR. So we did submit them, the questions that we wanted to ask, the students that we wanted to survey, and they approved all of that prior to us actually conducting the survey.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions?
I appreciate you guys getting on with that and sticking with it since it started in 2018. Yeah, my see thumbs up on that one.
And it's not uncommon for investigations to go, years. I mean, Springford's went 6 years, 7 maybe. Because athletics isn't the only thing they have to deal with. They deal with all civil rights laws, and athletics is only 2% of their caseload, so it takes a long time. The training for the coaches, what does that look like?
So part of one of the safe schools that we had them do was there's a Title IX course that Georgie and I selected that we made it part of their mandatory trainings with safe schools and everyone, moving that direction for a lot of ways. There's a real easy way to send out information to coaches that they're required to complete. So that was one of the big things that we did this year was we required them to complete a Title IX course that's through the NFHS Learn Academy.
Well, NFHS Learn doesn't have a Title IX course. It'll come out next month.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you wrote that one.
Yeah, wait, yeah, it'll come out next month.
Yeah, it's through, I believe it's through Safe Schools and not NFHS.
Yeah.
Is that right, Georgie?
It is, and
Yeah.
they also they also completed our training through ICS PEG that all of the staff
Okay, good.
by August 14th.
Yeah.
They did all of that as well as the one that Bobby assigned to them in Safe Schools. So the
I
coach-
took that one on safe schools. That thing is brutal.
I
Donna
know.
Lopiano did that course, and she's so higher ed oriented. It's I know that's really the only thing you have to go with, but man, that thing is brutal. Hopefully the NFHS course is going to turn out okay. They're working on it right now, and we're supposed to release it next month, and it'll be a little bit more user friendly. But yeah, I mean, something is better than nothing. I'm here to help, so I appreciate this update.
Sure.
I was really waiting with bated breath on what was going on, so that's good to know.
Yeah, so I had made a note that I'll send the presentation to the extracurricular committee. If anything comes up or after you review it, you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out.
Okay,
I'll also send over the memo as well as the acknowledgement form that we had the coaches sign, just so that you can get a picture for what's being requested of them as well.
that would be great. And Bobby, are you getting any questions from coaches or any pushback or anything?
There's been some, I don't know if I want to say pushback. There's been, when we sent the memo out, there was definitely some coaches that were concerned about, just because it was about communication. And so there was, I don't know if I want to say pushback. There is some concern, I would say, about the potential of looking to add additional sports if it's going to take away from sports that we currently have in place. That's definitely something that we've heard a lot of. But I wouldn't say pushback. There was questions, and I think we handled those questions, and I'm sure there'll be more questions as it continues to go.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Any questions? Dana, Mike, Melanie? All right. As we move through the summer and until we get back on schedule again in the fall, could you just please keep us updated as you are able? And maybe we'll bring you back in September and see where we're at that point.
Sure, be
Okay.
glad to.
All right. If there are no other questions for Bobby or Georgie, we'll move on. I don't see any public here, so we'll forego public comments. Any comments from the committee members?
No, just appreciate the update.
Sure.
It's been a great year.
yeah.
This is definitely a fun committee, and we have to keep it moving forward.
For sure. Melanie?
Yeah, I've been enjoying it for sure. I didn't have a chance to look at the agenda for today, but yeah, that's all good. Nice to hear about it and see the faces and the enthusiasm of the teachers, the coaches, the directors, everybody that's involved in everything that's, volunteer time. It's good to see that.
So my hope moving forward is as we gradually move out of the pandemic and try to get back to normal, that we continue to identify extracurricular programs in all of our buildings. And I think the pandemic kind of put a little bump in that road. So, Dana and Mike, I'll certainly be communicating with you over the summer as we work towards that goal, and also communicate with you to see what direction we want to move in as we start the next school year. I really appreciate you guys and your willingness to serve on this committee. It is so worthwhile and so important. So I do appreciate that very much. If you have any questions or comments for me, don't ever hesitate to reach out. Our next meeting will be September 16th at 6 o'clock, but we'll be talking, I'm sure, often before then, so we can plan for next year. I want to thank the administration for your support, and especially Alan for doing the minutes every meeting and getting those to me. And
That's actually a secret. You're not supposed to tell people that.
Sorry.
You're kind of outing me here.
Sorry. But also thank you for lining up our guests every month. That was huge. Really appreciate it. If there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to call for adjournment.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you at facilities.
Thanks, everybody.